What's up, everyone? Tonight we're live with Ron from Ron Couto Reptiles. How are you doing tonight, Ron?
I'm doing great, Alex. Thanks for having me on. Really look forward to spending some time with you and talking about reptiles.
Well, I appreciate your time. As some of you might be able to tell, Ron is outside at Florida, so that's why you can't really see much background.
Yeah, it's
Uh,
dark here right now, and I'm sitting outside because with the kids making noise inside and my in-laws are in there, it's going to be a lot of background noise. So I figured it'd be a lot calmer and nicer out here.
well, that was good thinking, and yeah, with kids, I got a variety of ages here, so they can make some noise at times.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it is a little chilly out here, so we'll see how long I can last before I got to go get something or go inside.
Well, if you ever get too cold, we'll deal with the background noise. We'd rather learn from you, and, a little kid noise won't hurt us.
All right, sounds good.
So, how did your reptile passion begin?
I've always loved reptiles since I've been a little kid. Growing up here in South Florida, back when I was younger, there were a lot of like open fields, areas that weren't developed. So I used to always go around flipping logs, trying to see what I could find. I grew up catching ring snakes, and that kind of gave me a passion for reptiles. When I was younger, my mom really didn't let me have any reptiles, so I would always try to sneak them in the house or keep them in the backyard. And just little by little, she got used to them, and she started letting me have them. She kind of got over the fear herself. And one thing led to another. I grew a collection, which eventually I sold. Like I was telling you earlier, in '99, I started breeding bearded dragons, and it was fun. I did it just as a hobby. I was just starting undergrad at the time. I met my wife, and she was terrified of animals, so I guess I liked her so much that I ended up selling everything. Ended up getting married, starting a family, went off to study my profession, what I do. I don't do reptiles as a full time job. It's really a hobby for me. And when I started making some money, I got back into the hobby. So I kind of got over the fear over the years. And when I got back in, I had some experience breeding bearded dragons and selling them. I always wanted a blue tongue skink growing up, but I could never find them. They were just super hard to find. They were really expensive. My parents couldn't afford one at the time. So now that I'm here making decent money, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna buy myself a skink. My son was just born. I was like, I want the kids to grow up with reptiles. I don't want them to be scared of reptiles like my wife was when I met her. So I got a tortoise, South African leopard tortoise, and I bought myself my first skink. It was about 2011. When I was doing research to buy skinks, I noticed I wanted an Australian skink. I didn't really want any Indonesian skinks at the time. And I noticed there are only a handful of breeders breeding them in the country. Really hard to find. You had to get on a waiting list and get lucky to just purchase one. So I went through the process. I got one, but I started thinking, man, maybe I should pick up a group of these and start breeding them. And the demand is so high. I think people will, you know, one thing led to another. I got a group. I started breeding them, and here I am. It's been, I don't know, 13 years now, 13, 14 years.
So, who was the breeder you got your first skink from?
My first skink came from Jeff Green. And
Okay.
I picked up two animals from him, and one of them was my nicest red animal, which I named actually Blaze at the time. And there's pictures of her if you look back in the forums, and probably on Instagram I have if you go back pretty far. Beautiful red skink, red northern. She's been the basis of my breeding program for all these years, pretty much. Even though she's one of the meanest skinks I have, she doesn't let a male get close to her. In order for a male to breed her, he really has to risk his life because she tries to rip their heads off every time. So I haven't actually bred her in a few years, but I have babies of hers that I've been using over the years.
Did the babies keep her demeanor, or are they a lot easier to breed?
No, they're a lot easier to breed. For some reason, it's just her. She doesn't really like males.
Well, at least you were able to get her genetics on, and
Yeah,
Jeff Green being one of the early on guys, you kind of chose very well getting your first animals from.
Yeah, and then from there I expanded. I just started looking for the highest quality animals I could find. Then I just built up my collection to what it is today. I don't have a big collection. I'm not really more about quantity. I try to keep it down more into quality animals. Like I said, I do this as a hobby. This isn't my full-time job. So I I have a family. I have a full-time job. This is something that I enjoy doing.
So, do you only have the northerns and easterns, or do you have?
I have northerns. I have easterns. The easterns I have are the New South Wales easterns, which differ a little bit from the ones you find further north in the Queensland area. And I also had westerns at one point. I got a pair of westerns a few years back, and I ended up selling them because, in my opinion, I don't think it was getting cold enough here in South Florida to be able to successfully breed them. I was able to get my male to lock the female several times, and I got slugs, but I never got babies. So I think it was due to a few things. It was either the temperature when during brumation. It possibly also could have been that I got older animals. So I've been considering starting again with babies and seeing where it goes.
How cold were you cooling all of them?
I didn't really try anything different. I cool all of my animals the same. My northerns, my easterns. I don't really go out of my way to do anything different. I keep the majority of my animals in my garage. So during the winters, the garage gets pretty cold. I just shut off my lights, turn off my thermostats, and that's pretty much it. After 2 months, turn the lights back on, turn on the heat, and a few weeks after they've fed a couple times, some of them don't even eat. They start showing breeding behavior, and I start pairing them.
Do you track how cold it gets,
Not
or?
really. I have a temperature gun, and sometimes I do, but I mean, I used to in the beginning. To be honest with you, I don't anymore. I kind of pretty much just have it down.
Well, at a certain point, your animals that you got, northerns and easterns, are probably so used to your
Yeah,
system.
yeah. Right. And breeding started a little late for me this year. I just got my first lock like within this past week, so the weather's been a little off. We've had a couple cold fronts coming through. It dropped to the low 50s last night. Tonight it's going to get to the low 50s again, which I know for you guys that live up north, that's warm, but it's cold for Miami.
Well, yeah, and you guys aren't used to it, and yeah,
Yeah,
and not prepared for it either. You don't got the bulked up jackets or any of that.
yeah. So once my skinks start breeding, I like to keep the temperature in my breeding room in the low to mid 80s. I don't like for it to get too cold because they kind of just go back down again. So it takes a few days for it to warm up before they start showing interest again.
And the ambience in the low 80s.
Yeah, low 80s to mid to mid 80s is what I'd like for it to be at.
It's so interesting that like there's so many different ways people are doing it. Like
If it
my
gets
ambients are
a
in
lot,
the 72,
okay,
and I guess some of it is it's harder to get the room that warm, but
yeah.
also I have other species I'm trying to keep it colder
What,
for.
what are you setting your thermostats at,
So
or your
part
basking, or your basking areas?
so the basking temp itself is during breeding in the low 90s,
Okay,
and um I'm sure the ambient in the enclosure themselves is, warmer than the room being at 72.
exactly. Yeah,
But
I don't like to get it too hot either because if you get them too hot too fast, their windows go faster. So as long as you can keep them in that lower range, the longer their windows are open, and you can breed them for a little longer. At least that's what I've noticed over the years.
how long of a window do you get on your Easterns there?
On my easterns, about usually about 2 weeks.
Is that normal for Easterns around the country? I've
I'm not
never.
sure, to be honest with you. Yeah, really, there's not many people breeding easterns in the U.S. right now, and in my opinion, easterns are amazing. I love easterns. I know The black line northerns that are out there, they're gorgeous also, but these eye banded easterns are amazing. I really really like them. Um, the babies are smaller when they're born, but they tend to have bigger litters. What I've seen over time, my litters have become a little bit smaller. I don't know if that has to do with my cooling, but in general, easterns give bigger litters than northerns.
How big are your eastern litters?
I mean, I've had up to 15, which I know that's not a lot, but if you look in the literature and you talk to people out in Australia, the litters for easterns tend to be bigger than northerns. Babies are also smaller. They're half the size of the northerns.
See, I know some people will get like, and this is, you know, in captivity, but like litters of 20 with northerns.
Yeah,
Well, those are also some bigger girls that
yeah,
got the reserves.
yeah. No, I know it's possible. Um, like I said, the eastern babies are smaller. At first, I was having, I mean, all of my babies did well, but they take a little longer to get going than the northerns. When the northerns are born, they're aggressive, they're biting, they're running around. Easterns, none of the babies try to bite you. They're super calm, they're friendly. But I noticed to get them going, to get them eating, it took a little longer than the northerns to get them growing. And I kind of figured that out. What I like to do with my baby easterns, I keep them in pairs or groups, small groups of 3 or 4 babies. And when I put the food in there and one of them goes to eat, all the other ones show up and start eating with them. I notice they do a lot better in small groups than keeping them individually like I do with my northerns.
Well, I know they're a lot calmer with each other too. So,
Yeah, they are. That's true.
do you think it's because mom, I don't know, or maybe they stay in small groups after in the wild when they're born, or
I have no idea. It's a possibility, but I'm not sure.
I mean, end of the day, if it works good, successful, and it
Oh
might as
yeah,
well keep doing it.
that's how I do it. Every time I get an eastern litter, I keep them in small groups, anywhere from 3 to 5 animals, and they do great. I just break up the litter into small groups.
After a certain point, do you have to split them up further,
Yeah,
or
once they get going and they start getting big and they start doing well, then eventually I split them up. But I don't even think you have to be honest with you. As long as those animals stay together from the beginning, they'll be fine. I think it's when you take them apart and then you put them together again is when you have issues.
would you think that would work the same with northerns or just the easterns?
Northerns are more aggressive. I mean, I have left my baby northerns together for a few days without any issues at all, but I haven't risked it uh, any more than that. Eventually, I get them all in individual enclosures.
And yeah, I've had one minor issue. One year I had to keep them together from baby rack was like 2 months late from when it was supposed to be delivered, and one got his foot hurt pretty bad. So after that, as I just always separate mine.
Yeah. Yeah, I separate all my northerns. At most, after a day or two of them being together, then that's when I put them in individual enclosures. But the baby northerns, like I was saying, they're way more aggressive than the easterns. The easterns are different.
Do so I usually wait like 3 to 4 weeks on baby northerns before letting them go. Do you wait longer then to let baby easterns go?
I don't let any of my animals go until over a month has passed. Usually, well, with the baby easterns, yeah, sometimes 2 months even before I let them go because they take a little longer to get going, like I was telling you. But even with the northerns, I wait at least a month to 5 weeks before I let them go. But in part, I do that because a lot of these um, high line or the nice line northerns that we have that we've been breeding, it takes a few sheds for them to color up. Some of these animals look really dark, 4, 5, 6 sheds. You really start to see their color develop. I don't know if you've noticed the same.
Yeah, and on a lot I've waited at least 3, and even then, yeah, some will definitely surprise you and you'll
Well,
sell to someone and regret it.
it's funny because a lot of classic northerns I've seen, it's the opposite. They're born showing beautiful, bright colors, and then eventually those colors just fade away. Where in like for example, the sunrise line, you see the opposite. You see them just continue gaining more color with every shed up until about the animal is about 2 years old.
Now, on you have more. When I say pure lines, I mean like just straight sunrise was in the pairing.
Yeah,
Uh,
so I have pure sunrise animals. Back in the days, I forget what year it was. I was able to acquire three animals, the pure sunrise, which Austin was also acquired from that same litter animals, and those animals actually became part of his orange line, or the producers of his orange line. So I was able to pick up animals from that same litter. We were both lucky enough to get animals. Those animals came from Andrew Saki, um, or they were descendants of animals of his. Um, and what I did is I crossed the sunrise line to the red line that I got from Jeff Green, and kind of developed my own orange line from there.
Now, I I know original Green Goblin didn't make it. Did the 2.0 still
They're
go on?
still here, yeah, they're still alive. They have changed a little bit in color. They so with the New South Wales Easterns, they continue to get more pigmentation as they grow. They get darker and darker. So the animals have darkened up a little bit, but they still have a lot of white on them. Not as much as when they were babies, but they're still look completely different than a regular Eastern. They are a little weaker though, so I don't know if there's something with that gene. If I don't even know if that is a gene, but they're definitely different animals.
Are they up to size now where you think you'll be able to breed them this year?
They are. I think one of them's a male, so I haven't paired them with anybody yet, but I do look forward to trying that.
And hopefully this is the case. Maybe if it is a gene with some maybe a little outcrossing, it will strengthen over time. And
So my Easterns, if you want a little bit of the history of where my Easterns came from, I brought them from Europe. Mark Webb, he uh, he got a hold of a wild stowaway Eastern that ended up in the United Kingdom, and he ended up with that animal, and he paired it to another Eastern, I-banded Eastern that he got sourced out of Russia. And those babies, I basically brought in four of them, and I also got another group of Easterns from that came from Kim Lancy. So
okay.
that was the basis of my Eastern project. And then I recently acquired some animals as well that came from New Zealand. So I have a nice mix of blood.
So it sounds like you got a really great mix. Yeah.
Yeah,
You got pretty much everyone that has, the only other one I could think of is like R&B, but I think some of theirs was Mark Webb and Kim's lineage anyway.
yeah.
So
So
you
yeah,
got,
like I said, there's not many people breeding Easterns in the U.S., and I think that's something that a lot of breeders should really be looking into because they're really spectacular animals.
now, have you, a lot of the ones I've seen of like the New South Wales are darker. Is there any other colors you see popping up at all? Or like some of the babies got more orange, but does that hold or?
Yeah, some of them have more orange on the sides. Some of them have more white on the sides. So there is some variability on the coloration. Now with the New Zealand ones, I'm getting some that are showing more yellow, and some of them are having some greens as well.
Do you think it's just that lineage that's why?
It could be the locality of the animal. They vary a lot in nature. So who knows where what the area of those animals came from? You know.
Time will tell. Are you gonna try to line or selective breed any colors or easterns or
Yeah, that's something I'm looking forward to.
okay. And I think that's a great aspect. Add some more variety.
Yeah, right now I have a trio outside in an enclosure, and I've had a trio of Easterns outside for a few years now. One of them was a hyper, and he wasn't able to give me babies. He's not a good breeder, so I put a regular Eastern with him with the two other girls. Hopefully, I'll get babies this year from them.
The Easterns that you've already bred this year, did you get the Goblin's parents to go again yet?
Not the same pairing, no. I'm out crossing them to the New Zealand.
Oh, not a bad idea.
Yeah,
Since you already got a visual and it needs some strengthening.
yep.
How is the pink tongue breeding process been?
Oh, that's good. That's good. A little frustrating, but good. Last year I didn't get babies. The year before I got a nice group of babies, but unfortunately I lost like 7 of them. So I wasn't expecting the female to have babies, and I showed up from work one day and I went to check on her, and there were babies everywhere. But some of them made their way into the water bowl and they couldn't get out. So unfortunately, I lost like 7 of them. It would have been a big litter, like 22, I think it was.
Otherwise though, once the babies are, normally born, they're pretty hardy, right?
They are. I also keep them in groups, big groups, and they do well in groups. They also, I don't know if they're social eaters or what, but they all feed together when I put food for them. They do a lot better in groups.
Do you just split them up in small groups of like 4 and 5 or?
Yeah, like 5 or 6. The babies are tiny. Pink tongues are tiny, tiny. So you can put a lot in a relatively, not too small, but a nice size enclosure.
What do you start them off in?
So I start them off on baby food, turkey or chicken flavor, with mixed baby banana food, and they do really well on that. Then little by little, once I get them eating, I start adding small bits of cat food into the mix, and then once they get on that, then they're usually good on the cat food. Occasionally, I'll mix in snails. They like chicken hearts, minced really finely. They love chicken hearts as well.
What I make for the blue tongues once in a while, I'll grind up or blend up apple snails and chicken gizzards
Yeah.
together, and I would imagine the pink tongues would devour that.
Oh yeah. I'm sure
That-
that.
Do
Do you have a nice group of pink tongues? Is that something you have, Alex?
I do not. I want to get some. I I'm planning eventually adding on to the garage, and that will give me a lot more room. Cause right now I got 8 foot section of my wall. I got dubia roaches. So if I move those into a shed, then I'll put some enclosures there, and I want to get some pink tongues. At least maybe 2 trios or something, or
Nice. Yeah,
and then
that'll be nice. You know what? I have more difficulty sexing the pink tongues than I do the blue tongues.
just because they're smaller.
Yeah, that's smaller. I don't know. For some reason, I haven't mastered them yet. The blue tongues, I'm pretty good at sexing them. I mean, not babies, obviously, but even the adult pink tongues, I still have a little bit of difficulty sexing them.
And that's the same thing, kind of visual characteristics.
Yeah, visual characteristics, the tails. I notice the females tend to have thicker tails than the males. The males tend to have slimmer tails. But you can't really see any hemipenal bulging or anything like that. So similar to blue tongues, but still, I still feel like I have more trouble doing it.
How hard was it, like setting the groups up, like whether you got pairs or trios, or do you
Yeah, no,
keep them?
I keep pairs, just a male and a female.
So how'd you go about starting that process, being they are hard to sex?
Yeah, I mean, eventually I put up 2 of them together and I saw them breed in front of me. So similar to how you do with the blue tongues, you just behavioral sexing.
Okay.
Yeah, they'll breed right away when you put them together. If it's a season, obviously.
So then do you cool them also with the other
Yep.
skinks?
Same as my other animals. Yep, everything the same. I try to keep things simple. Even the some of the snakes that I'm working with, I try to do more tropical snakes. So like that, I don't have to, cool anything down to the low 50s or 40s or whatever people do. I just let it drop naturally with our temperature here in South Florida, and I get babies. So I like to keep things simple.
It does seem like they, even though they're inside, they could sense and feel the outside temperature.
Yeah, definitely. And
So,
believe it or not, the heat and the cold makes its way inside.
yeah.
Sometimes I have issues in the summer keeping my room cool enough. It gets a little too hot, so I had to put a mini split AC in there just to keep the temperature from getting too hot.
See, I originally had a 110 mini split in the garage, and with upgrading and going to overhead lighting on all the adults, I had to buy a bigger heavy duty one because I learned the hard way.
Uh,
But I tried to cheap out in the beginning, and
yeah,
oh
it's
well.
it's you live and you learn.
So on enclosure size for the, like, we'll say the adult pair of pink tongues, would you do like a 36 by 18 by 18 or?
That's perfect. Vertical, they like to climb, so I keep them in enclosures like that. I even keep mine, believe it or not, in racks, and they do well in racks as well for me. But they're more of an arboreal species, so they like to climb. So they do better in vertical type enclosures.
And if someone wanted to do a trio, would you recommend probably a 4 by 2 by 2?
That'll be better. Yeah, I know a lot of people that do trios, and they're successful with it. I just like to keep mine in pairs.
Well, and some of it probably depends on the individual animals and the how many barriers they have.
I've even gotten babies from a male that I keep in a pair after a while of him being with a female, because I mean they live together year round. I take him during breeding season from her enclosure, and I add him to a single female in another enclosure, and he'll breed her, and I'll get babies from her as well.
I'm I'm hoping to try to do that this year with my Berber skinks because I had to separate my trio because the girls didn't like each other anymore.
Nice. So I have Cunningham skinks as well, and I also got Hosmer skinks. And with the Gurnia, I don't know if you're familiar with the Gurnia. They are very social, and it's very hard to introduce animals together to make pairs. So I've had a couple of issues with that in the past. Um, Currently, I have two female Hosmer skinks, and I tried introducing a male, and they beat him up pretty bad. And by the time I got to him, he didn't make it. So
Even was that just for breeding or just in general?
no, just in general, I was just introducing them to their enclosure. And there's a way to do it. Um, I try to do it during the winter when the animals tend to be down, and then right before it becomes breeding season. It seems like I've had more luck doing it that way. At least with my Cunninghams, that's how I was able to do it. I was able to introduce a female to a male, and it was right during the start of breeding season. And he showed a little bit of aggression at first, but they paired up right away, and they did great. They gave me babies.
I have a male Gidgee. I tried doing the same thing with a male and a female, and they locked. She was eating and she went off food, so I figured, oh, she's pregnant, and two
Not
weeks later she passed. Like,
oh,
I I have no clue. Like, it could have just been.
was this a new animal that you had recently gotten? Maybe she came with something, or
I had her probably 6 months, but
interesting.
she was an adult. There is a chance that the person wasn't telling me their correct age also,
Yeah, interesting.
but I just took it up as, you know, I did something wrong. I don't know.
Nah, I mean, you probably did everything right. It's just something that was going to happen. Sometimes you just can't avoid it.
Like I didn't see him picking on her. She was even bigger than him. Like she was seemed, she was a little skittish at times when he would try to breed at first, but nothing that looked concerning I saw. Um, so on your Cunninghams, can you pop them then?
So yeah, you can pop Cunningham skinks. Not when they're babies, and really not when they're adults. I'm sure you can do it when they're adults, but it's really hard. Um, I've had the most success with it with popping Cunninghams when they're around at least 6 to 8 months old. So juveniles.
Is that probably when they're more getting close to starting sexual mature but don't have as strong as muscles?
Not really. I mean, I have babies here that I were born here that are having babies for me now, and they really don't breed till they're about 2 years old. I'm,
Oh, okay.
yeah, I'm sure it can happen sooner, but I haven't seen that happen.
All right. So this question Josh asked earlier, he was interested to hear if Cunningham skinks would handle the cold temperatures better than his eastern blue tongues because he was interested in trying to keep that species outdoors in South Carolina.
Nice. Yeah, I like the questions from the audience. If you guys have any other questions, anybody that's hearing out there, just send them our way, and I'll do the best that I can to answer them. So I keep my Cunninghams and my Easterns. I don't keep all my Easterns outside, but I have a trio of them outside. But before that, I've been keeping Cunninghams outside now for like 7, 8 years, and they do great for me here in South Florida. Um, the temperature in South Florida, I don't know how it compares to South Carolina. You guys probably get a little colder in the winter than we do. But we have days here where it drops into the 40s. They're few and far between, but it's happened before, and my Cunninghams have done fine. Um, Only thing I do for them, I could probably show you guys. Um, if you see this, these are some of my cages outside. I don't know if you guys can see that.
Yep.
So you see, I have basking bulbs in there now. So on the nights that it gets really cold, I just run an extension cord outside, and I put a basking bulb in there just to keep the temperature a little warmer. And I throw a plastic tarp or some type of material over the cage just to keep the wind and the heat a little bit inside. But to be honest with you, there's been days that I've been out of town and the cold fronts come through. They do well with the temperatures dropping into the low 50s. They just burrow down into their substrate and they've done great.
How deep a substrate are you giving them
Just
outdoors?
4 inches or so. I keep them on pebble rock, but I have an area of cypress mulch that they can dig under, and also I keep like slate rock that they can burrow under there. So another thing that I think is worth mentioning, I keep them in the south side of my house. So if you get a cold front, you usually get winds coming from the north. So the south side of my house tends to stay a little warmer. So that's something to think about.
And I think that's a good thing to add. Where you put the enclosure outside really matters. Depending on what tree coverage you got will determine how much outdoor sun they're going to get. And
Exactly. Yeah, there's a bunch of different factors and variables that you got to consider when doing something like that. But I mean, I'm sure, in answering Josh's question, I'm sure he can do it. He's just got to be on top of the days that get really cold and maybe supply some additional heat. But
um,
they're super cold tolerant though. They do awesome. They're really really hardy animals.
now, when I was talking to Roger somewhat just about like Australia weather, he mentioned it might be like the 30s he gets sometimes where he lives, and there's Easterns outdoors. And
Yeah.
they probably burrow some also, but there's probably even lower temps that they can handle.
Oh yeah, I believe it. You gotta think in the wild, animals are gonna try to find the best shelter they can find, right? So whether that means burrowing in a burrow, going in a cave, just burrowing in the substrate, so they can get by those cold nights. So it's not like they're out and exposed in 30-degree weather. They're trying to find a nice warm in quotes you can say to wait till the sun to come out the next day. So when you're thinking about having enclosures outside, you gotta, you're restraining those animals from finding that warm area or that burrow or that cave or that hollow log that they can go into to spend the night. So you got to keep that in mind as well,
Um, do you, and you've probably heard of them, the like cane heat mats I've seen people use for outdoor like monitor enclosures.
Yeah.
Is
And
there any reason you choose heat light over those, or just
I just have extra heat lamps around, so I just do that. Yeah, it's just simple for me. Um, some people like that keep tortoises. Also, they have the like they're like little dog houses that they keep heat mats in or heat bulbs, and you can build something similar. But during the summer, I take it all in, so I get rid of it, and then I just bring it out for the winter, for the cold winter nights. But like I said, they're few and far between here in South Florida. We'll probably have a few more of these, and then that's it. It'll be fine.
now based on the substrate? It sounds like you got a good drainage level or
Yeah,
layer.
I have
Um,
pebble rock underneath.
so do you really have much issue then with like the rain then?
Not really. No, I have good drainage here for the most part. Yeah, I never had an issue. The Cunninghams are really, really hardy. Um, the Easterns have been doing great too. I've had them outside for I think over 2 years now. Yeah, they have never had any issues with it.
So when I was looking on your Instagram, and as you mentioned, you got them in 2011. What's your holdback process been throughout the years for breeding skinks? Because you've had some amazing red ones
Yeah,
for
I smile.
13 years.
I smile because my holdback has been pretty shitty. I end up for some reason selling all my babies. I rarely keep things back, and the things that I do keep back are animals that have like minor imperfections or I get attached to, or only recently I've been keeping more animals back. To be honest with you, over the years I've sold some of my nicest stuff, which I kind of regret.
And that was my next question, if you regretted holding back more.
Yeah,
So
but
going for
like I said, I don't have a lot of space. This is really a hobby for me. I do it for the love of it, not really for the money. So I wish I could have kept a lot of those animals, but again, I'm trying to keep things small and not get too complicated with it. I don't want it to become another job, if you know what I mean.
yeah. So there's no plans to say widen the garage or add a few more outdoor enclosures.
I think my wife's gonna divorce me if I do
Okay.
that. I mean, I'd like to, but no, not currently.
Well, and what's hard, your kids are younger, still growing up, where, once maybe in 10 years you might change your mind, or who knows?
Yeah, yeah. Who knows? I mean, I'd like to get some more enclosures outside. I think that'll be nice. But one of my other hobbies is tropical fruit trees. So I have a lot of rare tropical fruit trees in my yard. So I wish I had a bigger yard, to be honest with you. I need like 2 acres.
Now, what if you just have the tree in the enclosure? I mean, worst case, some bad fruit falls down, or
Yeah, I mean that's an option.
I don't know, then you could have the best of both worlds. I think it's uh Jerry Wolf. He's adding a lot of fruit trees in his monitor enclosures, and obviously he's got a lot of land to do that, but I don't know, just an option.
It is. It is something I may think about or consider in the future. I'm coming inside. It's getting too cold out there.
All right. Um, any plan on adding any new rarer skinks or new genetic skinks?
Yeah. I mean, I'm always looking to buy. I tell myself every year I'm going to hold back and not spend that much money, and I always end up doing it. But yeah, I'm always looking to add more interesting animals to the collection.
Anything in particular? I know I don't know if it was during the live or off before that you were contemplating Westerns again down the road.
Yeah, that's something I'm thinking about trying to maybe venture into at some point again, just to give it another shot. Um, we'll see. I don't know. I have a couple other things going on here that I just don't want to talk about, but I have some things in the works.
All right. What have you learned throughout the years to improve your breeding effectiveness?
I think diet is important. I've tried lots of diets. I think that makes a difference. I also think some of the things I do, a lot of people think they can have, for example, 5 females and 1 male, and they think that that 1 male will breed 5 females. And it's not like that. You really need to have, to be honest, I think you need more males than females. Males are really important because if your male's not ready and you have 3 females that are ready, you're basically done. Your season's over. Um, Also, I think if you breed a male today, I like to give my males a few days off before breeding them again. For some reason, I think they need some time to develop more sperm. So I have all these theories, these weird theories and superstitions, but I'm kind of weird when it comes to that.
Do you track your
My
success rate?
Not really. I don't track my success rate. I track my locks, and I keep a history over the years of how many babies I get from each female and so forth. But I try to get at least 3 or 4 locks on one female within a 10-day span. I like to break it up into like a 10-day period if possible. Sometimes you don't. Sometimes the female only lets you breed her 2 times within a 5-day span, and then that's it. Her window's over. But if possible, I like to get like at least 3 or 4 locks within a 10-day span, and that's worked for me.
What made you decide 10 days? Just sounded good?
I mean, I don't know. It's just a thought that I have that says that if the female, for whatever reason, is early in her window or her cycle, it just guarantees me a longer time of sperm getting, being available to fertilize the eggs.
And I think it makes sense, definitely, spreading them out. I was just curious,
Yeah,
like on mine, might end up closer to 2 weeks, but then again, like you said, it will depend on the female. Some will let you do 1 lock and they're done.
exactly.
Um,
I have tried to count, how many days of gestation and try to guess, when the male locked the female on what date. Maybe that was when they fertilized the eggs, but it's not 100.
we lost you for a sec.
Hear me?
Yep. So we got a question. John asked, "What is your dream blue tongue skink species?"
That's a good one. I would say a centralian. I'd love to have centralians. But on top of centralians, I would say I would love shinglebacks also. Goldfields.
I think that one might be more doable with there's like 2 centralians I know of in the States and a lot more shinglebacks I know that came in recent.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the prices are kind of ridiculous, but hopefully eventually they'll come down.
I think they will over time. Eventually more people are going to be breeding them, and I know at least some got to be in breeders' hands or potential breeders' hands.
The thing is, with have small litters, 1 to 2. So even though people are breeding them, it's not like they're flooding the market with them.
Yeah, and that's going to make it take longer to.
Yeah.
Talon asked, "How long is your northern blue tongue skink breeding window? Is it similar to your eastern window?"
I mean, it depends. That's a tough question to answer because, like, some females they let you breed, like we were talking, within a 5-6 day span, and then they don't want anybody near them. While others, it could be 2 weeks. But usually, on average, anywhere from 10 to 14 days is usually the breeding window.
I wonder if this would vary if you live more north like me. I can get mine a little longer, but my ambience, a lot colder, but it's also, they're feeling the cold from the outside at least somewhat too.
Yeah, so here in South Florida, we like to breed now, January, February, because once March rolls around, it starts getting really hot outside on some summer. Not well, it's not summer, it's spring, but some days get really, really hot where your temperatures are up into the high 80s, even low 90s. So, like I was saying, once it warms up past a certain point, something in them changes, and they're not interested in breeding anymore. They're interested in eating again. So right now, my animals aren't really eating them. I offer them food, but they're not interested. They're interested in breeding.
Now, what about your females? They'll eat though, right?
No, no, and even my females, even after they bred, I have some females that aren't interested in food at all. They just want to bask all day and not do anything. So I've had a couple of interesting ideas over the years of how to get these females to eat, and I've tried everything from chicken hearts. I tried shrimp. I tried.
I think you're muted.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yep, now we can.
Okay. Yeah, did you get that? So I've tried everything from even feeding my females, my gravid females, shrimp, chicken hearts, anything you can think of, and I have to get them, coax them to eat, because if not, they won't eat. If I just put food for them, they don't eat. I have to get tongs and kind of just let them smell it, and they'll pick it right off the tongs.
See, and you're not the first person
Can you
I've
hear me? I
heard
kind of
say
lost you
that.
there.
Are you there?
Hello,
Can you hear me?
Alex. Can you hear me? I lost you.
Can you hear me?
I can't hear you.
One sec. Let me see. What about now? Looks like Ron's having a little issue. If hopefully he'll rejoin that link. All right, here he is.
Sorry about that. I don't know what happened.
No, that's all right. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you great now.
All right, perfect. So, what's odd is I've heard multiple other breeders say the exact same thing, and all my animals are completely different. Like some of my males, they won't eat because they're more interested in girls, which yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, that's
Uh, but the females, yeah, like the first day it gets above their basking temp gets above 90, I give them a small meal, then like 5 to 7 days later they get another small meal, and it's just like normal dog food, nothing fancy. And then yeah, I start increasing food, and eventually I have to coerce them to eat, but by then they're gravid.
Yeah. No, I mean, I have some females that are like that, but the majority of my females, they turn everything down. They don't want to eat anything.
Have you tried pinky mice?
Yeah, they'll do pinkies, they'll do chicken hearts. So what I do is I get the chicken hearts or the pinkies, or when I used to do shrimp, I did that 1 year and it worked well. Um, I put calcium powder and vitamin supplements on it, and then I get them to eat it. But yeah, there's some things that they won't refuse. But if I just put plain dog food in there with veggies, they won't touch it.
I'll have to think of why that is. It doesn't make sense other than just mine seem to be that way.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's something that I always, I mean, I've kind of gotten used to it already. maybe it's just me overreacting, trying to get more nutrients and vitamins in my females, but who knows?
Well, and see, I think it was TC and maybe it was Manny that they had similar things. So I don't know. I'll have to ask a few more people that are more up north to see if it's
A regional thing.
yeah. Uh John asked, how can we fix the skink market demand?
Um, when I got into blue tongues, you could buy a northern for $150. So I got in when there wasn't much demand at all. Well, I guess the demand was there. The amount of animals, the supply and demand was different than it is now, but they were a lot more affordable than they are now. Seems like over the years that changed, and it seems like it's down right now. I think different factors are playing into it. One of them, I think, is the economy. I think things are tough right now. I think people are thinking twice about what they're spending their money on. So I think that's brought the market down, the whole entire reptile market, not just blue tongues. Um, Also, the collectible market, people that collect comic books, coins, and so forth, all that's pretty much on the low right now. I think it's going to change eventually. Everything that goes up must come down, and everything that comes down goes back up. But I think with all the new morphs and the new genes that are coming into play, I think it's going to bring a lot more excitement into the area, and it's hopefully going to get more people interested.
And I think that's the key overall. You need more people, from keepers to breeders, and I know for a while, not everyone was as helpful, but now if we could, try to help more new people and, like stuff like this shows that, breeders are willing to help, new people learn and hopefully be successful breeding themselves also too.
Yeah, of course. No, I mean, I know there's been mixed reviews about the blue tongue community, but I've really only had positive experiences over the years. I met a lot of great people, made a lot of really good friends, and really had a positive experience with the whole entire blue tongue community. There's people I talk to often, people I've become lifelong friends with through blue tongues. I was gonna say I do recommend for new people trying to get into the hobby or want to breed skinks in the future. You got to do it for the love, not really for the potential profit that you may make. You really, really have to have a passion for this, and you got to love the animals, and you got to have a mindset that you're doing this not to make money. You're just doing it because you love it. You got to go into it thinking you're going to lose money, because in all honesty, it's going to be a lot of work, and you really, really got to love it in order to be successful in it, I think.
Yeah, and I think that's have like you said, having the passion for the animals and the new Morse, I think will get more people in, and as it seems reptiles overall are being more accepted in households.
Definitely, yeah. And also, that's another thing I have over the years. I've done. It's funny. I'm in the medical field, and I did a career day at my kids' school, and I didn't talk about my profession in the medical field. I spoke about breeding reptiles. So I like to do educational, little bits and pieces whenever I can with kids, just to get them hooked and show them that reptiles are amazing animals.
And I think that's great, getting that next generation in. I could still hear you. I'm plugging my computer in quick so it don't die.
Okay.
Uh, so I was looking at some of the snakes you keep. Why don't you see more people breeding like the Everglades rat snakes?
They're awesome. They're one of my favorites. I think it's a super underrated species. Maybe I'm a little biased because I grew up here in South Florida, and when I was a little kid in school, whenever we had to read books or they'd take us to the library, I'd always check out like Florida reptiles, snakes of Florida, even snakes of North America. I'd always be reading books about reptiles. That was the way I grew up. Anytime I had they forced us to read in school because I really didn't like reading much. I would always read reptile magazines, reptile books, and just learn as much. And the snake I always wanted to find, the snake I always wanted to have when I was a little kid was Everglades rat snake. It was like in my opinion, one of the nicest snakes, native snakes you can find down here. Um, so I mean, I picked up a small group a couple years ago. The hypomelanistic ones are gorgeous. I mean, I'm sure you've seen the pictures on Instagram. There, it's like a highlighter orange snake. It's beautiful, and they're spunky. They have attitudes on them. They you know they're really nice snakes to keep.
So, is there any big downsides to them other than?
You can compare them to a corn snake. Corn snakes are a lot more docile. They're better beginner pet snakes for young kids. The Everglades rat snakes can be a little bit more aggressive. They can be a little bit more bitey, I guess you can say, until you tame them down. Some of them tame down. I have some that are puppy dog tame, but others, they still want to bite you every time you take them out. So as long as you don't mind that, you know, they're amazing snakes. Yeah, look at that. That's
They're,
gorgeous. They're
I was
gorgeous.
trying to do that earlier and it wasn't working. I figured I'd try once more to at least show because they're vibrant orange. I'm
And then
assuming they don't get huge.
they have yellow underneath their chin and in the tip of their snout. You see that yellow, and then that converts into like a bright fluorescent orange for the rest of the body. They're gorgeous.
So what's adult size, or is that adult there?
Oh, they can grow up to 5 feet long.
This is not too bad.
This is a one of my breeding females. So she's produced eggs for me. I have babies from her right now. And she's probably pushing close to 4 feet if you stretch her out. They're thinner. They're not as thick, but they tend to be longer. But yeah, they can grow up to 5 feet long.
Yeah, but that's still manageable for most people size wise.
Oh yeah. I feed. I'm feeding these now. Her and the male. I feed them baby chicks. They eat rats. They eat chicken necks. They'll eat chicken hearts. They pretty much eat anything.
Are the babies hard to start?
Not really. They're really easy. They have a strong feeding response. So as you get a little pinky with tongs the first couple times and put it in front of their face, they'll bite it and they'll start eating it right away. After that, they usually they'll take anything.
Now, living in Florida, you have some longer snakes. Are you worried that you might have to eventually lose the yellowtails at some point?
I hope not. I love so another snake I always dreamed of having growing up here in South Florida is an eastern indigo. That's like the holy grail. And unfortunately, I guess I can have one, but I won't be able to breed it. And you got to do paperwork. You got to get a federal permit, I believe. So I got into other species of dry marcon. I got yellowtail creevils. I have Texas indigos. I have blacktail creevils. And I love them. It's an amazing species. It's a snake for more experienced keepers. So I don't recommend it as a beginner snake or even an intermediate snake. But they're amazing animals, super curious, super alert, super aware of what's going on. They do get big. The yellowtails can get up to 9 feet long. So my pair right now is probably pushing 8 feet. I would say they're pretty big. But no, I mean I don't see them being an issue here in South Florida, to be honest with you. But who knows? Who knows what they'll come up with tomorrow?
Yeah, and they're kind of at that point where they're not too big, but I guess you never know with Florida is what I worry.
Yeah. The yellowtails are amazing though. I was lucky enough to get a beautiful pair. I mean, they were wild caught, so I had to treat them for parasites, and they've been producing babies for me for the past few years now, and the babies are gorgeous. The adults are gorgeous. The male is pretty unique. He's got more of a golden tail. I haven't seen many other animals like him.
Does that gold seem to pass down to the babies?
No, we go back to, do I keep any holdbacks? And I've intended to keep babies back, and for some reason, people come along and they coax me to sell them. So I haven't kept any back. So I couldn't tell you that, to be honest with you. With the yellowtails, when they're born, they keep gaining color in their tail with every shed. So they keep coloring up into adulthood. So that animal is going to look completely different as an adult.
Well, that makes it hard then,
Exactly.
because you're going to want to hold a bit potentially back a few years.
Exactly. Yeah, and I've tried to hold some back, but eventually I've gotten people to convince me to sell them. So I haven't, unfortunately. This year I probably will.
Is there a decent market for
Oh
the?
yeah. I mean, like I told you, I haven't been able to keep any back. I've sold them all right away.
Is that not many people are breeding them?
There's a few number of people breeding them, but I think the demand for them has gone up exponentially over the past few years. I don't know how it's going to be going forward because it seems like a lot of the people that have been buying recently are buying with intentions to breed as well. So I don't know how the supply and demand is gonna be in the next few years. But again, it's an amazing species. I love working with them. Their eggs are huge. They're bigger than like chicken eggs almost. And just seeing those babies hatch, man, it's amazing.
How big of a clutch size do they have?
My first clutch, I was 16, and last year I got 14. I
So
had a
that's,
100% hatch rate both clutches.
oh, nice.
Yeah,
So that's not bad either. Then the incubation ain't too hard.
yeah. The only tricky part with the yellowtails is getting the baby started. So it's a little tricky getting the babies to start eating. They have a strong feeding, or I guess not feeding response. They can strike as babies. So if you can get them to bite onto something, sometimes they'll just follow it down and just swallow it. But the key for me has been feeding them silver sides. They do better starting off on silver sides. Then I switch them to
Is
bees and then fuzzies and so forth.
Are they hard to switch over from silver sides?
Oh, not really. All you got to do is scent them or thaw out the pinkies with some silver sides, and once they get the fish scent on them, they'll eat them right away.
So in the wild, is that more what they'd normally be babies eating small fish?
I think so. I mean, dry marcon eat other reptiles. They eat birds. They eat amphibians. They eat fish. So it just depends what the baby wants. So it's nice to have a nice supply of different options to try to get them going. But my best success has been with the silver sides. I've tried frog legs or frog meat. I've tried cut up like chicken thighs and wings into little bits and pieces. And my best luck has been with the silver sides.
As adults, though, they'll eat frog legs, right?
They'll eat anything. I'll throw a hot dog in the cage and they'll eat it. I don't know. And I'm not even kidding. I can throw anything in there and they'll eat it. Yeah, they're eating machines.
That's nice, especially if you thaw out something that if you have other species that can be picky at times, they can be
Yeah, they're once they get going, they'll eat. They'll take anything. So I feed mine rats. I feed them chicks. I feed them chicken hearts, gizzards, chicken necks. I feed them fish occasionally. I just try to mix it up, but the majority of their diet should be chick based or bird based. Quail, baby quail. You can do larger quail. If you feed them too many rats, they can become obese.
now you obviously hope this you don't have stillborns, but what about like stillborn blue tongues?
Oh yeah, I've done that. They'll eat them for sure.
Yeah, because I figured then at least nothing goes to waste, and
Exactly. Yep.
because the slugs, the female will probably eat a bit. I mean, maybe the cribos might eat those also.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. They'll eat anything I put in there. Only thing they won't eat when I put in there is if I put the male or the female in there together. Surprisingly, I haven't had any issues when I pair them.
Are they normally kind of harder breeders?
No, I mean I've heard and I've read from other breeders that they've had the male rough up the females, and they have powerful jaws, so they can lacerate the females, cause lacerations from bite marks or from biting.
Yeah, but nothing is extreme like some king cobras will eat the other one or something.
I'm sure it's happened before, but I think the key to that is just having a so in this species the males grow bigger than the females, and I think that plays a role in preventing the female from eating the male. Um, when you put them during breeding season, when you pair them, the male
Yeah, we lost you. Last we heard was during breeding season. You might have to leave and come back again. Let's see. Can you hear me now? Sorry about that. Once Ron gets back, we're going to be pretty much wrapping up. Uh, feel bad about that. Must be some service issue in and out. Here we go. Whoop.
Sorry, I think every time I get a call, it kind of boots me off. And my phone's linked with my daughter's, and all her friends keep calling her.
Well, that definitely makes it harder.
Yeah.
I was mentioning that we were going to pretty much wrap it up anyway once you got back. I wanted to at least let you know and thank you for coming on. That way, you know, you could spend some time with your family tonight still since you were just getting off work. Where can everyone find you?
I have Instagram. I got Facebook. I have a website, but I haven't updated it in like 7 years. So I need to work on that. But really through Instagram, even Facebook, you can find me through Facebook. But what's up to date, what I post the most pictures in is Instagram, and it's at Blue Tongue Lizards with an S.
And in the description of this episode, I added your Instagram, your Morph Market, and your website. I did notice it was.
Yeah, I have baby skinks that I gotta list up on Morph Market. I haven't had a chance to do it. I've been really busy this year, but I still have some babies here that I want to find new homes for.
Well, and if people are interested, I'm assuming weather's still cooperating to ship throughout Florida, you know, in most North states.
I shipped the baby to California the other day, and lately I'm only shipping to FedEx hubs, and it's the safest way to do it. And there was a delay, and I freaked out because the delay, the Memphis stop, it was gonna drop to like 20 degrees that night, and surprisingly, the baby arrived safe. Nothing happened. Everything went perfect. So I was thinking I've never lost a baby in transit after I don't know how many years of doing this. That would have been my first. I thought it was going to be my thing worked out.
Well, luckily you didn't lose it. I think we lost you again, Ron.
No, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Oh, yep. Yeah. Now I can.
Yeah. So I had a scare the other day, as I was saying. I thought I was going to lose my first animal in transit and shipping, and everything went fine. But the animal got delayed, so I had to spend an extra night out somewhere, and it arrived safe. It did great.
Well, and if you know FedEx is smart, they'll put it in somewhere where it's temperature controlled, and everything will still be safe when that happens.
Yeah, but sometimes you hear horror stories happen, you know. So I was always, of course, I was thinking the worst, you know.
Yeah, you once in a while hear they'll leave, them on the tarmac or something, or
Yeah.
well, thank you again, Ron, for coming on.
Thanks, Alex. It was a pleasure. Good luck this season. I hope you get lots of babies.
You too. Thank you.
All right. Have a good night. Thank you,
You
everybody.
too. Bye.